We just got one in the transfer portal. A former 5-star at edge rusher with big-time SEC experience. From the 5.73 to the 3.05. Damon Wilson. Welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It feels like yesterday Miami was recruiting Damon Wilson out of high school. Sometimes when you come in second or third place in the original recruitment, you wind up getting that player later on through the portal. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Miami's defensive line, I know they're losing some really important players, but the D-line's going to be sick next year. The edge rusher rotation, they have big shoes to fill. Reuben, Bain, Akheem, Mesidor off to the NFL, but they are filling those big shoes with some very large feet with the way things are going on. All right, so Damon Wilson, he visited Miami, I guess after the long weekend. He was on campus Tuesday at the U, did go back home to kind of weigh his options and decide. And ultimately, the 6'4", 250-pound edge rusher, he chooses Miami over the likes of LSU and Texas Tech. So this is a big win in transfer portal recruiting for Miami. And a big part of Wilson's decision was seeing, not only the sort of season Miami had rushing the passer this past year, which was just incredible, top of the nation in pressures. You had two elite performers and some other really good performers on the edge. And why wouldn't you, for one more year in college, because that's what Wilson has, why wouldn't you want to get your final coaching and your final development from the likes of Jason Taylor, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, JT, who coaches Miami's edge rushers, and he works together with Damian Lewis as the co-defensive line coaches, with Lewis, a former defensive tackle, focusing more on the interior, and JT, the man with the gold jacket, focusing on the guys on the edge. So why wouldn't you want that sort of coaching, seeing the type of success that Jason Taylor has had? So a little bit more on the season that Damon just had. 13 games at Mizzou this past season. He gets 9.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. One of the best pass rushing defenses was Mizzou, and he was at the forefront of that. He gets 54 quarterback pressures this past season. According to Pro Football Focus, that's top 10 in the country. 23 overall tackles this past year. And now Damon Wilson is on his way to the University of Miami. So you just look, and you can correct me in the comments if I leave anybody out that's going to be in Miami's pass rush this coming season. Damon Wilson, who, is going to have to earn it, but obviously projects as a starter at Miami based on what he's done in the SEC the past few years. Damon Wilson, Marquis Lightfoot, who just had a really good year and a little bit low-key because Mesidor and Bain were the headline makers, but Marquis Lightfoot was a problem for opposing offensive lines this season. He's got the speed and the explosiveness, and Lightfoot continues to add more size to his frame. I expect Lightfoot, if not to be a starter, probably will be a starter this coming season, to be a prominent part of the edge rusher rotation. Third, Scroggins, Herbert Scroggins. I project big things from him. He got his feet wet, had some important reps this year. Hayden Lowe, don't forget about Lowe coming off of injury, right? Hayden Lowe is a true freshman at Miami this year, suffered the ACL injury right before the season, missed the entire season, did start practicing with the team late in the year. Lowe is going to be a monster. Armando Blunt, the versatility to play at a high level inside and outside. Cole McConaughey, who was injured. And Miami also brings in super talented true freshmen like Asharri Charles and D'Anthony Lafayette. Asharri Charles especially looks like a guy who can impact the team immediately. So the Miami edge rusher rotation, you throw in Damon Wilson, you go from strength this past season to strength this coming year. And again, they're going to have to try to replicate the production of Bain and Mesidor. Miami certainly has the bodies and the elite talent on their defensive line to have, that sort of success this coming season. They have some really good players there. Damon Wilson II solidifies that edge rotation. And on the defensive line, we also got some really good news earlier today that Ahmad Moten Sr. is coming back for his senior year. Senior coming back for the senior year. A lot of the word senior in that one. But Ahmad Moten, who just had an awesome year as a starting defensive tackle at the University of Miami, was not 100% certain that he was going to play his final year at the U. Ahmad is coming back. So you think about Ahmad Moten coming back with Justin Scott. Miami also landed Jarquez Carter from Ohio State is coming over in the transfer portal. The Hurricanes defensive line, folks, I can't emphasize this enough, is going to be great. They really thrive in Corey Heatherman's defense, and the coaching combination of D. Lou and JT has been awesome for that group. So, Damon Wilson, welcome to the U. We were talking earlier on, this is our third episode of the day, man. We were talking, earlier about Gerard Pringle entering the transfer portal. I know there's been some Alabama smoke, but also I'm not going to completely rule out Miami finding a way to retain Pringle. I know that's something that Pete Nakos at On3 Sports put in his rundown of the situation that, it could be Alabama or it could be seeing him retained by Miami. And I think I speak for all Miami Hurricanes fans when I say you would love to see Gerard Pringle suit up again at running back for the Hurricanes. Fletcher coming back, he's the clear number one. But then between Marty Brown and Gerard Pringle, with Pringle providing that change of pace and that quickness and speed and burst on the outside, I think he'd be an important player to return for the U. But if he does go, that would give Jordan Lyle, if he stays, more opportunities to kind of bounce back next year. Because this season, Lyle dealt with injuries that put him behind. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey is also still on the team and had some good moments. In the limited playing time he got this year. So I think Miami's going to be more than okay at running back. But obviously, if I had my way, I would prefer to retain a guy like Gerard Pringle. And obviously we're following other transfer portal situations. There's nothing new since we spoke earlier today about Darian Mensah. Again, I expect this is going to end with a big financial settlement that Miami would pay to Duke, and that Darian Mensah, the star quarterback, is going to end up at Miami. We'll know a lot more about that when we get close to that February 2nd court date. We're also following his top wide receiver who may want to join him here at Miami. We've also been following, Jordan Seaton, the offensive tackle from Colorado. That one seems to be trending in LSU's direction, but I was hearing about some drama. And I know Matt Moscona, my colleague who hosts Locked On LSU, has been all over this story that, apparently Seaton was going to commit to LSU, but his uncle is very much involved in the process, and the uncle, I guess, wants him to go to Oregon, was receiving some kind of allegedly financial compensation from Oregon, so it's like a whole thing now. LSU's trying to win the uncle over. I mean, that's the most 2026 transfer portal recruiting story, right? So we'll see how that one plays out. Miami has kind of been considered to be in that top three for Jordan Seaton with LSU and Oregon. But, I don't know. Maybe Miami still has a shot, but it seems like that one might be trending in a different direction. But we'll continue to follow that one. But Damon Wilson to Miami is huge. We keep our eyes on Darian Mensah of Duke and receiver Cooper Barkate from Duke. Barkate, who hit the transfer portal officially last night. 72 receptions for 1,106 yards, 7 touchdowns this past year. I mean, you talk about Miami's offense likely being stacked for next year, the defense clearly being stacked with what the Hurricanes have added. It's an exciting time to be a Miami Hurricanes fan, and it's always stressful. We're following the portal. We're still reeling from that Monday night loss in the national championship game, but we will bounce back. Thank you so much for smashing the like button, for subscribing. Make sure you become a Locked On Canes official everydayer. Join the Everydayer Club. Make sure you hit the all access tier where you get exclusive episodes, exclusive newsletters, one-on-one text messages with me, a discount on the Locked On merch store, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.